Guild receptionists are entrusted with administrative and management tasks. Their primary responsibility is seeing off adventurers on their way to clearing a dungeon and filling out the related paperwork. The position is both safe and secure. Guild receptionists can't lose their jobs or income as public service workers. They are guaranteed a peaceful and good life. They get to wear an adorable uniform. And while adventurers risk their lives on challenging missions, all they have to do is sit at the counter all day and do some laid-back office work. She finishes work and gets home on time. Or so she thought. She is the guild receptionist, but since she doesn't want to work overtime, she just solos the boss. In the big city of Ifer, at the guild counter, many people were talking and busy. Next in line, please, said the cheerful and beautiful receptionist, Elena Clover. Meanwhile, outside the guild, many people were still busy talking. In the distance, heavy footsteps could be heard, seemingly drawing closer to the receptionists. And a chilling voice spoke, saying it's finally his turn. It could be seen on the faces of the people outside the guild shock and concern. One of them asks if it isn't the one they call the Ruthless Blade, Ganzu. Ganzu is one of the elites of the guild. While one of them mutters that it was his first time to see him, Elena feels irritated because she doesn't have all day to wait for him. As Gazu slowly approached her counter while humming, she wondered why he chose her counter. There were 4 other counters, not to mention at a busy time like this. She asked herself why she had to get the oldie who spends his sweet time bragging. Despite that, she politely welcomed him and asked if there was a quest he wished to take. Ganzu wanted Belfr's quest, double floor underground ruin quest, and aimed to defeat the boss, Hellflame Dragon. The people around him were shocked by his quest and were relieved that the finest guild party had finally set out to take down the boss of the underground ruins. They're finally going to conquer the entire dungeon. They were greatly impressed by Ruthless Blade Ganzu, believing that no one could defeat him. Ganzu, who was full of confidence when talking to Elena, believed that everyone had been expecting this for a long time. He also said that dungeons take time to conquer. He can't blame people for relying on their elite party, the Silver Sword, to beat the boss. Elena answered Ganzu, "You're right," but she also whispered irritably, "You're slow, even when conquering a dungeon." She smiled at the end, brushing it off as nothing. Elena then asked for Ganzu's license and said, "If you're alone, a first-class license will be needed. But if you're in a group of 4, a second-class license will suffice." And Elena gave a form to Ganzu to fill up the form and present his license. But Ganzu proudly boasted that he was a member of the Silver Sword Party and bragged about his rank and status within it. But Elena didn't understand his point because she interacted with dozens of adventurers daily, so she was bound to meet some of the most famous people. That was why she knew his rank and license grade. She also noticed the relic weapon he was carrying, Alma Battle Axe. For him, that was enough to vouch for his identity. The relic weapon Alma is one of the artifacts crafted by the ancestors of this content. Their civilization greatly flourished, but they were said to have perished overnight. Made with the first-rate technology of ancestors, the relics are said to be superior to any other weapon ever crafted, whether in attack power or durability. True to his name, Ganzu the Ruthless Blade used his relic weapon to slash and slice enemies, and many bosses died by his hands. He's an excellent vanguard attacker and member of the Silver Blade Party. He owns a second-class adventurer license. But the rules are clear. To obtain a quest, he has to present his license. Elena is already aware of that. But no matter their rank or class, their honorable adventurers are bound to face danger. And, sometimes, even death. Elena explained to Ganzu that, for the sake of everyone's safety, part of the role of a receptionist is to ensure that the person who takes in a quest is suitable for the job. Also, the license is used to protect the lives of esteemed adventurers. However, Ganzu removed his armor from his face to use his charisma on Elena. But Elena smiled and continued to ask for his license. Ganzu repeatedly tried to persuade her, but it still didn't work on Elena, who insisted on getting his license. In the end, Ganzu grew tired and was forced to show his license, and he already agreed with all the terms, signed it, and left. Elena is too exhausted because the other receptionists have already gone home. Despite that, she has to handle all the paperwork on her desk. They left the other paperwork to Elena because they didn't want overtime work. She wants to go home and never get out of bed again. She drinks her refreshments in front of her table, feeling angry and blaming her boss. The most profound level hide within Belfr's underground ruins is the final boss, or Hellflame Dragon. The delay in completing the dungeon is the boss's fault. When all the bosses of a dungeon are defeated, monsters that live there all leave the place. But since that boss remains undefeated, they keep coming back. The guild offers rewards for defeating the monsters. This represents one of the primary sources of income for the adventurers. That is why they hunt dungeon monsters. As a dungeon's completion approaches, adventurers take on more and more quests to earn money while they still can. As a result, the reception desk is overcrowded during the day, and she has to work tons of overtime at night, just when she finally got a stable job as a receptionist. Before the interruption of dungeon completion, she sang the praises of a peaceful life as a receptionist. Since that boss started causing problems, she's been stuck in her never-ending spiral of sleeping, eating, and working. Even if she works on weekends and holidays, this hell won't end as the boss remains undefeated. Elena had reached her limit but needed to stay calm until the dungeon was cleared. Her peaceful routine would return as soon as the dungeon was cleared. While looking at the forms, she muttered to herself, overtime is temporary. That's why she clenched her teeth and did her best working all these hours. But for Elena, none of that could beat a single boss. They're just a bunch of useless adventurers. That is her forbidden last resort to avoid any more overtime. But if it gets her out of that, she doesn't care anymore, and she keeps blaming her boss repeatedly. She stood up and threw the papers, and she would go home on time. Helcasia Continent Eastern Belfra Forests. Belfra Underground Ruins Deepest Floor Class A Dungeon. Recommended Party Number 4. Meanwhile, the Hall Flame Dragon was confronted by the 4 members of the Silver Sword Party, and they were shocked by its extraordinary strength. They couldn't get close, as even their ice magic was being repelled by its scales. The faces of the 3 members of the Silver Sword Party showed fear as one of their members, Ganzu, could not land a hit on the Hall Flame Dragon. His battle axe didn't even leave a scratch on the Hall Flame Dragon. One of their members told Ganzu to stand up and fight. He couldn't believe the dragon was so strong because even relic weapons didn't work on it, and he even ate the relic. He knew that the more ether there was in a dungeon, the more powerful monsters they would find there. However, this monster is on another level. Although the phenomenon is rare, monsters sometimes end up swallowing ancient relics. But overwhelmed by the relic's immense power, most monsters end up dying. However, some of them can withstand that power. Those monsters will obtain even more magical power and a robust constitution. As a result, the species becomes so powerful that it can't even be compared to when it only inhaled ether. Ganzu was weakened and pleading that he couldn't go on. The other members of their guild were talking, saying that this wasn't looking good. Suddenly, a female member approached the dragon and activated her skill while the other members tried to stop her. Hammer of the Giant God is one of the skills of a Silver Sword Party member, but they was amazingly shocked by that skill. A weapon appeared out of nowhere. They had never seen anything like that. Now that she finally met this dragon, the reason why she overworked herself, Elena cursed it. She slowly approached it, her anger rising, and she fought it. She struck the dragon hard on the head until it fell to the ground. The guild members were shocked because they couldn't even scratch the boss, yet she defeated it with a single blow. Elena did not stop smashing the dragon's head. She kept attacking it, driven by her anger. She walks away after the battle, and the other members of the guild can't believe it. As the Silver Blades tank, he has always been on the front line while clearing dungeons. His job is not only to shield his team from attacks, he is also in charge of the command and leads the fight. So far, he has directly fought many strong opponents, so it is not a stretch to say he can accurately grasp one's power upon meeting them. But not once in his entire life did he witness such an overwhelming power. The overwhelming display of Elena's power left all the guild members in stunned disbelief. They had never witnessed such a feat before, and it was a moment that would be etched in their memories forever. One of their guildmates repeated the executioner's name, seemingly clueless about its significance. A brief silence filled the room before Ganzu, with a mix of curiosity and fear in his voice, asked again if he didn't know who the executioner was. When clearing a dungeon is stuck, they appear out of nowhere and defeat the boss alone. That's the legend of this mysterious adventurer. Again, he was shocked and disbelieving at the executioner's claim that she could defeat the boss alone. After all, he knew that adventurer parties were typically composed of 4 members. Each of the 4 members of the Silver Sword Party had unique abilities. The first member of the guild, nicknamed the Tank, specialized in defense, attracting enemies and shielding the team from harm. The second member was the healer, whose role was to mend the team's injuries and ensure their survival during battles. The third member was known as the vanguard attacker of the team, wielding a melee weapon. The fourth and final member was the rearguard attacker, who specialized in magic and was tasked with creating openings for the vanguard attacker to strike decisively. The 4 members of a Silver Sword Party were going to dungeons to fight powerful monsters in narrow dungeons. The number of adventurers in a party mustn't be too high or too low. After 200 years of mistakes and trials, they finally arrived at the most efficient comp. Moreover, there is a hierarchy in dungeons. The deeper you go, the more powerful the opponents. Fighting a boss with a party of 4 is necessary, but soloing it was unimaginable because there's a limit to how reckless one can be. But it's precisely what they just witnessed, and there's no denying it. The vanguard attacker with a giant hammer single-handedly defeated the boss. After she beat the Hall Flame Dragon, she was expected to go home early tomorrow and talk to one guild member about it. When he passes by, he calls the name Jade, and he thinks he is right. He doesn't imagine things because his eyes work fine. As Elena walked away, he noticed that this executioner wasn't a veteran adventurer or the Grim Reaper. She is just a young woman. The cheerful face of our protagonist, Elena, greet the adventure with a warm smile. She is again at her job as a receptionist. The surroundings are quiet and everything is calm. But suddenly, she sits down, curses, and thinks she did it again. The Silver Sword Party is looking for someone and wants to offer them the vanguard attacker position in their team. The wanted person is an adventurer of small height. Dressed in a cloak, their face and gender remain unknown. Their weapon is a giant silver hammer. Their codename, Executioner. Elena was sinking deeper into her thoughts, consumed by an overwhelming sense of depression. She couldn't help but wonder if she had lost her mind, questioning whether there was something wrong with her or if this was all just a twisted reality she was trapped in. After completing Belfra's underground ruins, the number of quests went down. Within a few days, she can deal with all the late paperwork and finally be allowed to go on time. But everyone was busy reading the newspaper about the executioner. The people's eyes were glued to the pages, confused and fearful as they discussed the brutal report. In every corner of the town, the executioner's name was on everyone's lips. As each person read the details, the word spread quickly. The newspaper also reported that ruthless Blade Ganzu would soon retire due to permanent injuries. The headlines spoke of his decision, marking the end of an era for many who admired his strength and bravery. As the news spread, those who read the article couldn't help but feel a growing sense of worry. How much longer could they continue their own lives as adventurers? The uncertainty of their future loomed, and the idea that their bodies might one day fail them weighed heavily on their minds. One of those who read the newspaper felt a spark of interest in an adventurer who had always dreamed of joining the prestigious Silver Sword Party. Despite the dangers, he couldn't ignore the opportunity. As he shared his desire with a companion, the response was filled with concern. His companion warned, "There are many strong monsters in that place, and those who make it through have insane skills. It's not for the faint-hearted." But the adventurer, with determination in his eyes, replied, "He has a dream. He wants to live in an affluent neighborhood of a big city like Ifer, gain a lot of money, end up stupidly rich, and be surrounded by cute girls like Sir Jade." But anyway, about that executioner, the adventurer was astonished by the mysterious figure who had defeated a boss that even the renowned Silver Sword Party had struggled with. With a single blow, the unknown warrior had shown unparalleled power. As he stared at the photograph in the newspaper, his mind raced with questions about who the mysterious executioner was. The mystery lingered in his mind as he sought answers. He heard rumors about them but never thought this executioner story was real. Then the other adventurer told him it could only be true since Jade from the Silver Sword said it. It seems like the guild itself is looking for them. They're even using their research and information teams, and it's only a matter of time before they find out who they are. The adventurer wishes they had found them sooner rather than later, and he wants to know what kind of person they are. While walking, Elena talked to herself about the Silver Sword Party, hoping it was just a joke because she couldn't afford to get dragged into this mess. Because in her mind, when you're a receptionist, side jobs are strictly prohibited. A receptionist must always be in the best physical and mental state possible. They are quick and efficient when dealing with quest-related paperwork, so there is no way they could be allowed a side job. In Alina's mind, getting a fake license under a false name and defeating bosses secretly is just to avoid overtime. There is absolutely no doubt that if she found out, she would be fired. She lifted her head while talking to herself, saying that despite working hard overtime, the advantages of being a receptionist are endless. Generous benefits and a stable income allow them to plan for the future. The best part is that they won't have to worry about finding work again. That is the only lifetime employment contract. This society is harsh and absurd. If the company you work at faces financial difficulties, it gets dissolved, or you could be fired if your performance is anything less than excellent, or your boss could run away overnight, leaving you unpaid. All of those things are very frequent nowadays, but being a receptionist is a public job. As such, she will never lose her job nor be fired, even if their performance is bad. The Adventurers Guild, which is the appointed authority, is the foundation of the city, and there is no way the higher-ups could take your salary and run away. A profession that guarantees your livelihood and keeps paying you for the rest of your life, and that's why Elena became a receptionist. The fact that working overtime is problematic for Elena is just temporary. The number of juniors she has will eventually increase, and she will be able to entrust them with the time-consuming tasks, and she will never do any more overtime. She walked again, repeating in her mind as if she would let something as trivial as this stop her and end her career as a receptionist. Meanwhile, at the arena of Ifer City, a battle was taking place, and the crowd was screaming as the girl fought in the ring. At the same time, the first member of the Silver Sword Party was about to introduce Jade Scrade, who was watching this girl fight. The audience could see an intense clash between the two warriors, with the battle escalating with each strike. The crowd cheered loudly, their excitement growing with every powerful blow exchanged. The skill that this man used just now is a primary human skill. It strengthens the body but still stays within the range of human capabilities. On the other hand, the woman's skill is more of a transcendence or a super skill, which allows her to break through the limits of human abilities. So, in a head-to-head comparison, a super skill is by far the strongest. But Jade was taken aback and surprised by the woman's super strength in the fight. At that moment, he remembered the mysterious adventurer, the bearded man sitting next to him, who was watching the battle, heard what he said and responded to him that he had been mistaken. After all, this sword fighter woman has the most powerful strengthening skill in the arena. He also explained that it doesn't matter which strengthening skill they use because there is just no way someone could beat a monster that swallowed a relic weapon with a single blow. Thus, Jade thought again that this woman was not the mysterious woman who defeated the Hall Flame Dragon because their hair color and faces differed. The bearded man again tells Jade that even if they all used a super skill, as Jade says, it is simply impossible. "He's right," said the newly arrived beautiful woman, who was a member of the Silver Sword Party, Lulari Ashford. Lulari was certain they could hear of that woman with a hammer if she really existed. Aside from that, veteran adventurers have a hard time handling the right kind of weapon. She tells Jade that now is not the time to slack off. Then he replied to Lulu that if she saw it too, she would see her power with her own 2 eyes. But Lulu did, and they needed a few clues to be able to look for them. It's true their build was small, but they can't assume it's a woman based on that. Moreover, the name on the records of the solo expedition was a man's name. But Jade indeed of it. He was sure that a woman. They haven't told the guild, but he saw a woman. She had black hair and light green eyes and was also relatively young. Lulu is annoyed and tells Jade that all he has done for the last month is look for that giant hammer user. The guild has already assigned them new quests. They need to start looking for an attacker seriously, or we'll be in big trouble soon. She tells Jade that he is the party leader and needs to act like one. Jade responds while scratching his head, saying Lulu is right. Jade knows that with Ganzu leaving the party, their top priority is to find a new vanguard attacker, and he doesn't have time for that. Ever since he saw that hammer girl in the dungeon, he has been strangely intrigued by her and won't stop thinking of her. He wants to be the one to find her. Jade went through every registered female adventurer's information. He even paid a renowned informer's organization. But he couldn't get a single clue, and he asked himself again if he was wrong or if the hammer girl was not a woman. So he decided to start interviewing attackers tomorrow. He walked around the city while imagining the hammer girl, the aura of the giant hammer weapon, and the skill that made her weapon appear from nowhere. He realized, no doubt, that she had some kind of unknown power or skill. At that moment, he stopped and thought about the divine skill, a legendary skill whose existence has only been approved in ancient literature. It is a god skill, a power that their ancestors once viewed and used as a blessing from God itself. Its power is said to surpass even super skills. It was so strong that it made the former Helkasha continent prosperous enough to be called the Kingdom of God. However, that skill disappeared when their ancestors perished. Nowadays, super skills are the most powerful skills, although they're still way below any divine skill. If that girl was a divine skill user, then Jade's curiosity would be satisfied. But if an adventurer with a skill like that existed, the entire world would have heard of them. Jade was looking at her hand while holding a stone, and that is the red orb that came out of the Hall Flame Dragon. The relics engraved with the symbol of God of their ancestors offer high performances and have a very high trading value. Any adventurer would normally jump on that loot. That hammer girl didn't care at all about that relic he handled. It seemed like her only goal was to kill that boss. Jade didn't know the reason, but hammer girl seemed really angry at the dragon. Jade looked at the stone again in his hand, and in his mind, he thought that the relic would sell for a high price, and he had to find that girl to give him the money, too. He walked through the city again, telling himself that he would find hammer girl. He stopped walking, staring momentarily at a woman with her back turned, describing in his mind the features of a hammer girl. For a moment, Jade's world stopped, stunned and unable to believe what he was seeing in his mind. This was the woman he had been searching for, and he was 100% sure of it. In the busy city, Jade found hammer girl, but he wouldn't let her slip away again. He chased after her until they reached the guild counter, and he was surprised to see hammer girl was heading inside. Elena's face was unreadable as she stared at Jade. Not only he is the only adventurer possessing 3 super skills, but his good looks also make a significant number of women fall for him. The leader of the elite party, Silver Sword, Jade Scrade. Elena remembered last month when she fought the dragon, that Jade was one of the adventurers who were there, and she wondered why Jade was here, considering the guild had already sent out all the quests that an elite party could take. Elena was sweating profusely because, for her face was hidden, and the paperwork and her license were fake. She grabbed her skirt tightly, hoping there would be no way to trace anything back to her. Meanwhile, a beautiful woman with white hair appeared, and it seemed that she knew Jade very well. She asked why the Great Silver Sword party leader was in that type of place and assured Jade that if he were looking for a quest, she would personally take care of it. Jade declined it, saying he didn't come there for her. He pointed to the receptionist standing at the side, and it was indeed Elena. The white-haired woman asked if Jade was referring to Elena Clover and if there was a problem with her. But Jade answered that he just wanted to speak with her privately. The white-haired woman wondered why Jade wanted to talk to Elena privately. Jade walked up to Elena as if about to have a serious conversation. Elena, with her head lowered, wondered why the leader of the Silver Sword, on par with the guild's high-ranked executives, was there. She couldn't afford to be wrong and would rather die than talk to him. As a receptionist, Elena asked how she could assist Jade, and Jade answered that he wanted something to ask Elena. He began to tell the story about what happened at Belfra's underground ruins. He also mentioned that he saw a powerful person wielding a hammer, and he said that he has been looking for it ever since, and he asked again to Elena if she had any information about it and if she knew who they are. But Elena apologized and refused to help Jade because she didn't know their identity. She then said that if Jade wanted, she could ask the other receptionists if they knew anything about the adventurer he was looking for. She walks again while Jade is looking for her. While walking, Elena slightly stopped because Jade mentioned that he had pretty sharp senses. Even when it was dark, he could still see quite well and distinctly see their face. He then mentioned Elena Clover's name. The adventurer swinging their hammer was a young woman with black hair and emerald green eyes. Elena replied as if she didn't really know her, and they exchanged glances without any conversation. Elena was nervous and sweating profusely while thinking to herself, hoping that everything was just a lie, that Jade was teasing her because she had hidden her face, and there was no way now because he would soon find out. And Elena knew that receptionists were prohibited from having a typical side job and let alone a freaking adventurer side job. She feared that everything would be over for her as a receptionist. Elena reminisced about her time as a receptionist. Although her time there was short, that job brought stability and security to her life. When she thought about it, she felt like she was working overtime and had no good memories. But she would rather be overworked here than work as an adventurer who constantly risks their life on the job. Elena was sad while thinking about her job as a receptionist, but she felt a surge of confidence, and now that she had finally gotten her dream job, a well-paying and secure position, she wasn't going to give it up. Jade never thought she was a receptionist and realized they couldn't find her because they only looked for an adventurer. He handed Elena the red orb, pleading for her to take it because it was her loot. But Elena wanted to refrain from it, thinking that Jade was joking. But Jade was not kidding. Elena explained the importance of the relic. It symbolizes their ancestors' knowledge and technology. They are known to be vastly superior in terms of durability and solidity to any other modern material. Jade agreed, stating that it was the reason why relic weapons were so strong. But while holding the red orb, Elena crushed it in her hands because all she wanted was to live her life peacefully as a receptionist. She told Jade, the elite guild leader, that she didn't give a cheese. She won't forgive the ones who disturb her peaceful life. She smiled with a mix of anger and teasing at Jade, saying that if he didn't stop, his guts would end up like the dragon's. So she told him to leave and never show his face to Elena again. Jade was speechless and stunned, which made Elena angry at him again, and she asked if he understood. Elena stepped out of the guild and happily walked home, telling herself she was worried about the whole situation but still managed to escape that guy away. But in the middle of her walk, she stopped again because Jade was waiting for her. She asked him how she could help Jade, and Jade replied that he wanted to talk to Elena. Elena told Jade that she understood about the quest, but she also apologized for the inconvenience and said the receptionist's desk was closed for the day. But Jade grabbed Elena's hand to stop her, and Elena, unable to move, asked Jade if that was a skill. One of Jade's super skills was Guardian of the Iron Wall, which allows him to harden and reinforce any object he touches. It doesn't work on humans, but he can still restrain Elena's movements by hardening Elena's clothes. For Elena, what Jade was doing to her was truly bad, and Jade explained that if he didn't do that, Elena wouldn't talk to him properly. Elena's face showed a mix of anxiety and weirdness, and Jade said that he spoke like that because he was the leader of the Silver Blade, and there was nothing weird about that. He asked Elena if she would talk to him now while finally saying the name of Miss Executioner. Elena agreed to speak with Jade, but she wanted to do it in a different place. They talked in a secluded area, and Jade went straight to the point. His face was serious, and he wanted her to join Silver Sword. However, Elena took out her giant hammer and swung it beside Jade. Here, Elena's face was serious as she explained that receptionists aren't allowed to have a side job, and if she got caught, she would be fired. She really can't afford to lose the job she worked so hard for. The aura of anger around Elena intensified as she gripped her giant hammer, telling Jade to die and leave her to live a peaceful life. But Jade seriously asked Elena where she got that giant hammer. But Elena had no idea where this was coming from. All she knew was that it would come out naturally when she activated her skill. Jade recognized it and said it was a divine skill. Elena froze, not knowing the divine skill, so Jade told her that she had been using it without even knowing what it was called. Divine skills are rumored to have been used by our ancestors. They're even more powerful than the super skills that they currently use. Their existence has only been mentioned in ancient literature. But Elena asked Jade if he couldn't really know if that was a divine skill. But all Jade knew was the fact that Elena's weapon manifests only when she activates her skill, and it was genuinely intriguing. They know for sure that it's completely different from any super skill, and it might be even stronger than those. But Elena really didn't care about all that stuff, and she picked up her hammer again, ready to continue what she had started earlier. But Jade tried to stop her and explained that his team was in a horrible spot. He also mentioned that after seeing Elena's extraordinary attacks, their vanguard attacker, Ganzu, was such a big shock that he decided to retire. That's why they urgently need a new attacker to replace him. Elena was slightly surprised by Jade's words, but she had already heard about Ganzu's retirement due to a serious injury that couldn't be treated. Meanwhile, Jade was about to get frustrated with Elena and said Ganzu was also proud. But Ganzu couldn't admit that the reason he retired was that he had lost confidence. Elena's face in response to what was said seemed like she didn't care. That's why Jade, enraged, clenched his fist. Jade shouted loudly, saying that he needed Elena, but Elena felt it was sexual harassment and an abuse of authority. She jokingly said that she would sue Jade. However, she thought that they didn't really need an overworked receptionist, and she bet that Jade already had plenty of women. But Jade didn't care about other women and said that from the second time he saw Elena's strength and face, he couldn't stop thinking and thought about her every single day. Elena felt nauseated by what Jade said, but Jade was serious about it. He opened his hand and seriously begged Jade to join the Silver Swords, but Elena ignored it. All she wants is to live her life as a receptionist in peace. She also tells Jade there is no place for him or his team to interfere and disturb her peace. Jade replied and requested that she stop being a hindrance, and he asked Elena why she killed the Hall Flame Dragon. He also said to Elena that if she only wanted to be a receptionist, she shouldn't have cleared the dungeons, and he wouldn't have found out about her. He also said that she wouldn't have to be so desperate to hide her identity. But Elena wanted to avoid working overtime, and if that dragon died, she wouldn't couldn't be forced to. That's why she killed it. Jade was stunned by Alina's shallow reason. She just didn't want to work overtime. Alina stared at Jade with frustration and asked him what happened to his face, wondering if he needed another reason. She finally got irritated with Jade and shouted at him, asking if he understood the feeling of hopelessness when she stared at a mountain of paperwork that never ended, or when she clearly saw herself drowning in work. More people keep coming to add more tasks, and the feeling that she just wants to kill them. She grabbed Jade by the front of his clothes while he was apologizing to her. Alina blamed Jade and the others because they were too busy and useless to clear that dungeon. Her hell never ended. That's why she is frustrated and puts an end to it. She shook Jade and asked what was wrong with it and why everyone was obsessed with her identity. But Jade came up with the idea that if Alina joined the Silver Sword Party, she wouldn't have to work overtime anymore. But for Alina, it's just because there is no concept of fixed hours when you're an adventurer. She just wants to keep her safe, stable, and good-paying job. Adventurers depend on a lot of external factors, and they don't for how long they'll be able to work hard to pass on that kind of unstable job. Based on Jade, from what he saw, he doesn't think any kind can seriously injure or kill Alina. Meanwhile, Alina decided that she didn't want to join Jade's group, and if they wanted a new attacker, it would be better to ask someone else. Before leaving, Alina looked at Jade as if she was threatening him, saying that if the news got out, she wouldn't let him off so easily. While Alina was walking away from him, he shouted in the middle of the night that he wouldn't give up on her. It was a refreshing, gloomy morning at Alina's house, and birds chirped around. She was sitting on her bed, asking herself what she should do that day, whether she should use violence against Jade to shut him up. She would likely get fired if she laid a hand on a high-ranking guild member. Alina was fed up with all of it. She didn't want to get up or go out. She just wanted to stay in bed and escape from reality. She stands up and opens her window, saying that she likes her place and there are no more annoying clients she has to smile at or stalkers who would boost their confidence. She no longer has to socialize or finish a pile of work before the end of her shift. And above all, there's no overtime. She lay down again. For her, it was her paradise, a place where time flows serenely, and she is free to do whatever she enjoys. A peaceful and harmonious oasis where she can rest and ease up. She loves her home so much and wants to laze around forever. Even a young girl like her, who's barely starting out in life, managed to buy that dream house on her own. However, the only reason she got approved for a loan in the first place was because of the stability and reliability of her receptionist job offer. She really made the right choice by getting that job. It's hard, but it's so worth it. But she definitely won't get fired. In the peaceful surroundings, Alina sat on the chair, feeling exhausted. Finally, it was lunch break. For Alina, that morning was the worst. Jade showed up again and just sat there all morning. A lot of people stopped by to see him. It was so crowded. To make things worse, the other receptionists were all fawning over him and didn't do their jobs, which caused even more people to come to Alina's desk. For her, it had seriously become bullying at that point. Alina was sitting in a beautiful spot, gazing at the entire city and deeply missing her home. When Jade suddenly arrived, he praised Alina for finding such a wonderful place that was nice, quiet, and relaxing. He had no idea there was such a pleasant place in Ifur. When Alina heard Jade's voice, she angrily asked him why he was there, saying he was a thorn in the flesh of a man. She activated her skill, the giant god hammer, and swung it at Jade. Jade blocked it with his shield while explaining to Alina that he didn't do anything and just wanted to see how things were going. But Alina was angry and told Jade to shut up, stop slacking off at her workplace, and do his job for once. Alina also explained that her lunch break was the only time she could rest, so she asked Jade why he had to come there. And Jade told Alina she was more violent than a troll on a rampage. The two sat down while having a serious conversation, and Jade said that he becomes annoying once he makes a decision. He is confident in his physical strength, willpower, and vitality. While Jade was speaking, Alina was pinching his hand, but Jade didn't like that. Jade continued his serious talk, saying that despite everything, he is said to be the best and strongest tank in the entire guild, so he can't give up. The two fell silent during their conversation, and Jade changed the topic. He asked Alina how she activated her divine skill the first time it happened. He also mentioned that people nowadays can't do it, and he wants to activate his, too, but he is afraid it might never happen. But Alina refused to tell Jade how to activate it. For her, activating a skill is like luck. They can't really control it, and Jade agrees with Alina. Skills are a power entirely different from one's magic ability. They are unique, latent, and inherent to each individual. Unlike magic, which can be used by anyone, provided they have magical power and some knowledge, skills cannot be used if they haven't been activated first. While it is generally accepted that skills are innate to all human beings, the conditions for their activation remain unknown, and it is currently impossible to trigger them intentionally. On the contrary, there is no clear answer to determining the nature of the skill or even what kind of force activates it in the first place. There are so many mysteries around what they call skills. Jade thought his power should be used for something, but before he could finish speaking, Alina interrupted and replied that she was free to do whatever she wanted. She then asked Jade if that was right. Alina also told Jade that he wouldn't get anything from her if he just sat there all day doing nothing. She then told him to get up, go to work, and stop being lazy. After their conversation, Alina left because she needed to go to work. Meanwhile, inside the guild, after Alina's break, she resumed working as a receptionist. Suddenly, a man with short hair and a kind appearance approached. He was looking for Jade, and Elena informed him that Jade was there just a while ago, but she was deeply sorry to say that she hadn't seen him since noon. And the reason of the man with short hair wanted to ask Jade for advice on how to become a tank. But Elena was sure that Jade, the leader of the Silver Swords party, also had much to do. In the middle of their conversation, someone suddenly slammed their fist on the other receptionist's desk and said that the receptionist should do as they say and give them the quest. An arrogant man with a tattoo on his face angrily stated that he was a first-class adventurer, and that the receptionist had to do everything he said. And his name was Slay Ghost. Elena and the man with short hair quietly stared at the arrogant man. Among the 10% adventurers that own a first-class license, Slay Ghost is a vicious claimer who's renowned for his bad temperament and for throwing tantrums when he doesn't get his way. He is notorious for causing commotions at the desk of the Adventurers Guild. Elena really doesn't want to get involved with that guy. Slay Ghost was at Lyra's desk. The new receptionist recruit was scared, so she spoke to Slay Ghost to apologize because they didn't have the quest he requested. The arrogant first-class adventurer, Slay Ghost, slammed his fist on Lyra's desk again and told her that what she was saying wasn't true and that he was sure they were just hiding it. He also called Lyra arrogant and said that, as just a receptionist, she had no right to speak to him like that. Lyra really couldn't help Slay Ghost, so Elena intervened and asked what the problem was. She also told Lyra that she would handle the situation. But the arrogant and persistent first-class adventurer kept asking what the problem was and insisted on getting the secret quest. Elena calmly spoke to Slay Ghost, saying that, as her colleague mentioned earlier, they were deeply sorry, but they did not handle the secret quest he was referring to. But Slay Ghost doesn't need to hear any more of Elena's premade robot sentences. However, for Elena, this person was not listening at all. Regardless, no one there can offer Slay Ghost what he wants, and that is because the secret quest he is speaking of simply does not exist. The secret quest is nothing but a rumor that was spread among adventurers. Everything started with baseless gossip, such as there is a hidden dungeon that no one knows about. The mouth-to-mouth led the rumors to grow, and soon, the words secret quest were made up and spread between the adventurers. But Slay Ghost already knows that. He is the type of person they cannot fool. He is also aware that the secret quest gives access to a hidden dungeon, and that within the dungeon lies a special relic. He told those at the guild that they just wanted to keep the relic for themselves. But Elena assured that all guild quests would be disclosed and shown to the public on Roar. At this point, Slay Ghost angrily told Elena to stop speaking and just follow his command. He also said that they, the mighty adventurers, were gods compared to Elena, who was just a receptionist. Elena was wondering in her mind whether she should just hit him or call her supervisor. However, she doubted if Slay Ghost would be satisfied because her supervisor would say the same thing. Slay Ghost angrily grabbed Elena by the front of her clothes and shouted at her, telling her to speak and not just stare. But Elena just gave him a harsh look, and Slay Ghost didn't like that a mere receptionist would stare at him like that. The people inside the guild were watching, scared, and nervous about what was happening. Elena told Slay Ghost that any kind of violence towards the receptionists, or any other staff member would result in the immediate and definitive revocation of their adventurer's license. But Slay Ghost didn't care and raised his hand, ready to punch Elena, and he would be satisfied if he punched that smug face. And then, suddenly, Jade Scrade appeared. Slay Ghost was shocked and asked what the leader of the Silver Sword party was doing there. Jade grabbed Slay Ghost's hand and called out his name. He told him to remove his hand from Elena. But Slay Ghost didn't care about what Jade said because, for him, tanks were useless and nothing more than small fries with little power compared to attackers. He tried to punch Jade, but Jade blocked it with just one hand. Slay Ghost froze in shock and felt the pain from the block. Angrily, he told Jade that he was worthless and should not touch him. Jade's serious expression reappeared as he threatened Slay Ghost. He warned that if he ever saw him laying a hand on Elena, the receptionist, again, he wouldn't hesitate to act and wouldn't be as forgiving as he was that time. Fear was evident on Slay's face as he ran out of the guild. Everyone inside fell silent for a moment, amazed at what Jade had done. Jade immediately approached Elena and asked if she was okay. On Elena's face was a hint of embarrassment towards Jade, but she politely thanked him for helping her. Jade leaned close to Elena and emphasized that the man, Slay Ghost, was truly dangerous, so she shouldn't provoke him. He also reminded Elena that she couldn't use her skills in public. Elena agreed with what Jade said, ensuring the incident would not happen again. She then asked what had brought him there, causing Jade to freeze for a moment. Jade said he was about to go home, and then he took a sneak peek inside the guild and saw the commotion. After a long conversation, Jade decided to leave because he felt he would be a hindrance if he stayed any longer. Elena smiled and felt regretful because Jade had to leave early. She pleaded, hoping that he would return. Meanwhile, in the city, Slay Ghost stopped. He was furious with everyone in the guild, especially with Elena, for not screaming or whining and looking at him like he was trash she stepped on. He won't calm down until he punches her snobbish face while he walks through the city. He suddenly stops and sees a large stone tied and mounted on a cart. He was stunned and realized that it was the clay golem. For him, some party brought it there using a teleporter after clearing their dungeons. It's asleep. Defeated monsters typically fizzle out and leave no original form. So they put him to sleep and brought him to obtain raw materials and make weapons or armor from it. He smiled and thought as if he had a plan, laughing loudly while saying that he would defeat them all. Meanwhile, as Jade walked through the city, he couldn't stop the flood of questions running through his mind. He wanted to force Elena to join their group using his connections and influence. However, he knew that nothing was more fragile than a group that was forcibly assembled. He needed to find a way to make Elena willingly and wholeheartedly want to work with them. As Jade walked, he suddenly stopped, frozen in shock, as chaos erupted around him. He encountered terrified people running in panic, their screams filled with fear. He overheard fragments of their frantic words. The violent monster was on a rampage, heading toward the plaza. A wave of unease washed over him, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the direction of the plaza. He ran, searching for someone he could ask about what had happened. He stopped running, and his eyes widened in shock at the scene around the people lying unconscious and shattered debris scattered everywhere. Among the chaos, he saw a short-haired adventurer sitting on the ground. Suddenly, the massive monster swung its arm, aiming to attack the short-haired man. Without hesitation, Jade raised his shield and intercepted the golem's strike. The short-haired man was stunned by Jade's sudden arrival and could barely find his words. Jade quickly instructed him to run while he distracted the golem, determined to divert its attention. As the short-haired man was running away, Jade quickly drew his sword and thrust it into the ground. As he did so, he uttered the name of his skill, the magic light. The light from the sword spread around, creating a powerful aura. He taunted the golem, and while watching the short-haired man run away, he told him he would keep the golem busy. The golem struck Jade with a powerful punch, but he blocked it. However, the golem's attack was too strong. Two people, weak and struggling to stand, spoke from behind him, telling Jade that he couldn't face the monster because it was the raid boss. Jade froze, filled with a mix of shock and confusion, wondering why the raid boss was there. The two weak men spoke to Jade, advising him not to fight the raid boss. They explained that the raid boss was twice as powerful as normal bosses, and the minimum required to defeat the raid boss was 3 parties, and from them, that is madness. Jade knew that, but he asked them what the raid boss was doing there and how it happened. However, the two also didn't know why or how it happened. After putting it to sleep, they brought the golem there to collect raw materials from it. It wasn't supposed to wake up for at least 3 days, but suddenly, it woke up and went on a rampage. Suddenly, a loud laugh echoed as someone perched on the golem's left shoulder. It was Slay Ghost, thrilled because the obnoxious tank had finally arrived. He was grateful for his super skill, the Disturber of Dreams. Jade was shocked when he asked Slay if he was controlling the golem. Slay proudly boasted that the golem was still deeply asleep, living in a dream controlled by him and going on a rampage inside its own dream. But Jade asked Slay if he even realized what he was doing, making a golem destroy the city and put everyone's lives in danger, and he wouldn't get away from that. But Slay didn't care and asked Jade if he understood what he was saying, threatening that it wouldn't end well for him and the annoying receptionist. He also wanted to destroy the entire city and everyone in it. The golem monster began to move again. A strange skill emerged from the golem's feet as if they were covered in rocks. The two injured and weakened adventurers were deeply frightened because the skill being used by the golem was the Death Crush. That technique could defeat a tank with just one hit. They pleaded with Jade to run and not to face it, as it could cost his life. But Jade didn't listen and continued to face the golem. He activated his skill, the Guardian of the Iron Wall. The golem attacked, and a loud sound was heard, alarming the two adventurers watching. Jade appeared to be struggling with the attack, but for him, he could still endure it. But if the battle drags out, fatigue will accumulate, and since he doesn't have a healer, he won't be able to take another blow. Jade's armor was broken, and it was impossible to teleport the golem outside the city. He has no choice but to stay there and fight. He told the two adventurers to leave and gather all the adventurers they could find, bringing them there while he tried to keep the golem busy. Slay Ghost watched the fight while perched on the golem's shoulder, slightly amazed by Jade because he could block the raid boss's attacks on his own. For him, Jade's name truly suited him. But Jade doesn't have a sub-tank to switch with. More importantly, he has no healer. And Slay wondered how long Jade could keep blocking the raid boss's attacks. The golem raised its foot again and attacked Jade once more with consecutive and powerful blows that slammed against Jade's armor. Slay once again ordered the golem to do him a favor, which was to turn the city into hell. Jade showed great concern over Slay's command, and the golem began to move. It spread its arm as if stretching, and its body released rocks in various directions. According to Jade, this is an AoE attack. The rocks spat out by the golem are gradually turning into golems themselves, and once they spread throughout the city, it will become a battlefield. Jade's face showed signs of distress based on what he heard from Slay. Meanwhile, inside the guild where Elena was quietly writing, she could hear the continuous noise from outside, as the chaos hadn't stopped yet. She was extremely frustrated with her manager because, according to them, Elena had to finish the claim report by tomorrow morning. She would likely forget important details if she didn't complete the reports that day. However, creating a legal document takes a lot of time, so it's clear that she would be forced to work overtime once again. And it's not because there's some sort of turmoil outside that she can afford to run away or some heck. Due to the constant noise, Elena angrily stepped out of the guild to see what was happening outside, and she saw Slay Ghost was the one causing all of it. For her, he was nothing more than a monkey who couldn't even understand when someone tried to talk to him, so she wasn't surprised at all. There, she saw the golem heading toward a house and wondered, wasn't that just an AoE attack? And there's no reason to be whining so much. Elena paused momentarily and realized that the golem was heading toward her house. She leaped across the rooftops of nearby houses, quickly chasing after the golem. However, when she arrived, a massive boulder had already damaged her house. Furious, Elena exclaimed that she had taken out a 30-year mortgage, and there was no way the insurance would cover that. But the golem continued destroying her house, making Elena even angrier. The ground beneath her began to glow as she summoned her giant hammer. From above, Elena descended rapidly and struck the golem's face with her hammer. Her expression showed pure rage over what happened to her house, and she was now determined to kill the golem. Slay Ghost and the golem continued wreaking havoc in the city while Slay laughed loudly, mocking the adventurers. He taunted them, saying they were just small fries and worthless. No matter how many of them there were, they would never win. Jade spoke up. They needed to gather enough adventurers to form several parties, but the circumstances were against them. Their attacks are not working. He looks at their rearguard, asking what they are doing and if they will blow up the golem with their magic. However, they couldn't use their combined powerful spells in the middle of the city because the explosion could destroy buildings and kill many people. While Slay Ghost was speaking and riding on the golem's shoulder, something fast came from a distance and struck the back of the golem's shoulder. Slay was stunned as the golem's right arm was severed. An unknown person wearing a hood over their head and holding a giant hammer slowly descended in front of them. The golem let out a scream in shock. The executioner appeared, and Jade, along with all the adventurers present, were stunned in shock. Some members asked if that was the executioner, and what it was doing there. They thought it only appeared in dungeons that had been left unfinished for too long. Jade spoke to the executioner, saying he knew it was strong, but fighting the raid boss would still be difficult. On the other hand, Slay Ghost was thrilled because that battle would be fun for him. His face showed excitement for the fight, and he asked if that was the person the guild had been moving heaven and earth to find. A frightening expression appeared on Slay's face as he said that if he killed the executioner, the entire guild would surely be bitter. Meanwhile, Jade was still trying to stop the executioner, knowing she couldn't defeat the raid boss alone. He wanted to coordinate with others and launch an attack together. The executioner responded to Jade without concern, asking how he dared try to take the fight away from her. She also told Jade that the house was her only oasis when she was tired from work, which was her heaven. The golem and Slay were quietly listening to the two. However, the executioner was furious and no longer wanted to be restrained by Jade. Furious, the executioner wanted to kill Slay and the golem. He began her attack, leaping high, winding up, and swinging her giant hammer at the golem. Both of them were shocked by the strike that severed the golem's other arm. While the executioner and the golem fought, Jade hesitated to unleash his aggro. Aggro is basically the action of directing an attack towards someone or something. The tank's role is to redirect the attacks toward him because he is the only one in the team able to survive them. Usually, even if one steals the aggro with magic, when a really powerful attack hits a monster, it overpowers the taunt, and the aggro automatically switches back to the attacker. Jade has been the tank of silver swords for a long time, and not once did he lose his aggro to an attacker, nor did he ever feel like he was close to losing it. He praised Elena's attack power and felt that if even a fraction of his focus slipped, Elena would take it all. Meanwhile, Slay was sweating as he stared at Elena, asking himself what was wrong with that guy. Elena angrily declared that Slay dared to destroy her paradise, and for that sin, he would die. Elena vowed to drag him to the deepest part of hell. She jumped high, and from there, she would attack the golem again. Below, Slay commanded the golem to knock Elena down. However, Slay was puzzled as the golem only seemed to move, with Elena getting closer and closer to them while swearing that the giant would end up in hell. Her powerful attack hit the golem, splitting it in half. Jade, stunned and amazed by what happened, told himself that was all it took. The adventurers quietly watching from around couldn't believe what had happened, as their combined attacks didn't even faze the golem. To them, what they witnessed seemed like a joke. Slay sat in fear while asking Elena what kind of power that was. Elena, angrily approaching Slay, asked if he had never been taught that destroying other people's things was wrong. But Slay didn't want Elena to come closer, calling her a monster. Angry, Elena said that Slay shouldn't have done that, and she was ready to strike him with her giant hammer. Unable to control herself any longer, Elena swung her giant hammer in fear of hitting Slay. Throughout the city, his apology echoed, but it wasn't Slay she struck with her hammer, it was the ground next to him. Slay, overwhelmed by fear, fainted. After the battle, Jade approached Elena to say that everything had ended well. But Elena, in anger, grabbed Jade's collar, because for her, nothing was well, and nothing had ended well. After that, they both went to the front of Elena's house, staring at its damage. For Jade, those people really didn't hold back. Elena sat there, crying in sadness, asking herself how she was supposed to live like that and where she should heal her body and mind now, and her loan for 30 years needed to be paid back. She could no longer bear the problems, as they were too much, and so she couldn't stop herself from crying. Silently, Jade stared at her, thinking about what he could do to help Elena. Suddenly, an embarrassing idea came to him. Gathering his courage, he asked Elena if she would like to stay at his house for the night. Elena glanced at Jade's words and told him she would stay at the inn, asking him to stop being foolish. Because of the claimer, Elena had to work more hours. She pleaded with Jade to leave her alone because she wanted to be by herself. Meanwhile, after the battle between Elena and Slay Ghost, they left a broken floor in their city. Because of this, a woman wearing glasses and an old man arrived. The old man told the woman wearing glasses behind him that the executioner was there, and the woman responded to the old man he was correct. And that's what the report says. The woman wearing glasses seriously asked the old man why, even if it was him or Jade Scrade from Silver Sword, they were so fixated on the so-called executioner when his existence had never been confirmed. She also mentioned that there were many other exceptional vanguard members in their guild. The old man replied that it was simply because the executioners had hidden potential, and might surpass everything they had ever seen. The woman asked the old man if he was referring to the divine skill Dea. For the old man, it was a yes. Although they couldn't test their abilities until they met them and saw it firsthand, they couldn't say for sure. But he believed it was worth looking into, so he agreed with Jade for now. The woman wearing glasses agreed with the old man's words. If that was what he thought, they needed to find a way to get the executioner into the Silver Sword Party. Finally, the old man reveals his identity, and he is the Guild Master Glenn Gallia, the highest executive at the Adventurers Guild. Meanwhile, the Guild Master raised his hand and spread his palms as if casting a spell, saying that the executioner had messed up. He expressed his gratitude for protecting Ifer, but the executioner's appearance like that was a fatal mistake. And he did not hold a grudge against his skill. A large circle appeared, resembling a clock at the end of his hands as they were raised, and the guild master activated his skill. The observer of time. Elena was at her receptionist's job, angrily writing and telling herself that her house was destroyed and that she had to work overtime. She cursed the claimer until the end of time. She didn't know what to say and was looking at her companion. Jade greeted Elena with a cheer up and looked at her. Elena, feeling irritated, responded by saying that she wanted to disappear and questioned herself why she was still there. She thought to herself that if this were just an ordinary adventurer, she could have easily kicked him out. It also lingered in her mind why the leader of the Silver Swords had the right to enter their office. Jade spoke to Elena, asking why she hadn't gone home yet since everyone else had. Elena refused to go home, determined not to leave the pile of documents behind. She tightly gripped her pen while telling herself that she used to be one of those, and she carried it over to a day when she felt motivated. But Elena realized it. Tomorrow, she will pay for that day's indulgence. Besides, she won't have any motivation to work overtime. So, Elena quickly wanted to finish her work because she wanted to leave at the regular time tomorrow. And Jade said that Elena was surprisingly serious. Elena was worried because she had nowhere to sleep, as all the inns were probably full due to the ongoing reconstruction. To her, if they were at work, there was likely a bedding set for sleeping. Jade was surprised by Elena's words, and it seemed like he had something in mind. While Elena continued speaking, Jade suddenly stood up from his seat and loudly told Elena that if there were no available inns, it would be better for her to stay at his place. Elena seemed to have not heard Jade as she continued talking to herself, expressing that sleeping at work was a billion times worse. Jade, feeling frustrated, told Elena to leave. However, he quickly added that she should listen to him because people took advantage of the town's restoration to do bad things, and he couldn't just leave a girl alone. Then, with a smile, he said that he would wait for Elena until she finished her overtime. But Elena, clearly irritated, snapped at Jade, telling him that kind of thing was none of his business. While Jade was looking at the papers he was working on, he excitedly told Elena that he had finished organizing the stack of documents over there. Elena was surprised to see how quickly Jade finished the tasks she gave him, especially since he had interrupted her to help with overtime. She handed him simple instructions and documents to organize, and upon reviewing his work, she noticed a few oversights and mistakes that needed to be fixed. But she was amazed by Jade's speed. In her mind, he was so fast. She had only given him a rough idea, yet he was accurate in processing. The way he sorted the documents carefully and even checked them is impressive. She asked Jade if he used to do that kind of office work. Jade casually mentioned that he had always been an adventurer and occasionally read a guidebook, but he never had anything to do with office work. Elena was left speechless by Jade's words. In her mind, it became clear to her that he was one of those naturally gifted types, capable of doing things perfectly with just a little understanding. She saw herself as the awkward type, someone who couldn't grasp anything without stumbling through mistakes and stepping on every possible mine along the way. It had taken her more than 6 months of effort to finally perform her office work flawlessly. She was frustrated. People like effortlessly talented and naturally gifted were the ones who truly got on her nerves. Those who could surpass the pain and tears she had endured over 3 years in just a moment were those who truly infuriated her. Jade stood up from his chair and told Elena to calm down, his voice gentle but laced with concern. Elena's frustration boiled over. She had reached her limit. She thought life was inherently unfair, but admitting that would wound her pride as a receptionist. She couldn't find the motivation to do anything anymore, and she thought to herself, wishing someone would say, "Miss Elena, leave the rest to others. Just go to sleep for today." Meanwhile, Jade noticed something on Elena's desk, a small piece of stone. He remembered it. It was the stone that Elena had broken, the relic. Elena agreed with him and explained that she used it as a paperweight for the documents. Jade replied to Elena, surprised, questioning the use of the precious relic as a paperweight, and asked her if something was written inside that orb. Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the relic, noticing something written on it, and from that distance, she couldn't read the characters. Jade responded to him, assuring her that his eyesight was good. As Elena held the broken relic in her hand, she uttered the words inscribed on it, "Quest, Acceptance." Suddenly, it began to glow in her hand, and Jade immediately ran toward her, looking concerned and urging her to lie down. Elena dropped the relic, which was left on the floor, as they stared at it. Many characters began to emerge from it, swirling and ascending upwards. As this unfolded, Jade questioned himself, wondering what was happening and if this was the quest document. He read the words that appeared on the relic. No designated adventurer class required. Location is the Chalk Tower. Completion condition is the defeat of all boss monsters on all floors. The client is not specified. For him, the recipient's signature is optional, and quest acceptance is approved based on the above contents. After Jade read some of the messages, the light from the stone suddenly faded, and it returned to its normal state. They exchanged a look, wondering if this was indeed a quest document. Elena nodded slightly, acknowledging Jade's unspoken question, and responded quietly, confirming that it looked like a quest document. Jade looked confused, questioning the situation. He wondered about the quest from a relic and noted that he had never even heard of the Chalk Tower dungeon. Elena spoke to Jade, acknowledging the oddity of the situation. She handed him the strange relic, letting him know he could do his best from here on out. Jade looked at Elena, his expression questioning, as he wondered if she was pretending not to have seen anything. Elena responded nonchalantly, her tone light as she explained that she wouldn't want to get involved with something too bothersome. As Jade looked at and held the relic, he briefly considered whether they should try examining it for now. Meanwhile, inside the guild, where Elena was once again seated at her desk as the receptionist, she quietly read a newspaper. The article detailed the actions of the executioner. Elena grew nervous, realizing that she was the executioner in the newspaper, and she did it again. She read the contents of the newspaper. It was announced that a reward would be given to the executioner who protected Ifer from the crisis after the clay golem went on a rampage a week ago. But she was not happy with what she read. Instead, she felt nervous because the guild was now conducting a thorough search in Ifer. She also asked herself why this always seemed to happen, and then realized it was all because that damn golem kept destroying her house. While Elena was sitting quietly reading, a woman's voice came from behind her, commenting on how she seemed to be getting all worked up again. The woman was another receptionist, Lyra. She had spoken to Slayghost's receptionist earlier. Elena looked up at Lyra, asking what was wrong. Lyra noticed her expression and pointed out that she was frowning again. She expressed her gratitude to Elena, thanking her for helping with the complaint the other day. She complimented Elena, saying how handsome she was, joking that she'd be head over heels for her if she were a man. She then mentioned how difficult it was to deal with people like that, especially for a newbie like herself. Elena, feeling irritated, thought to herself that she was about to hit Lyra with a hammer. Lyra continued, urging Elena not to overdo it, adding that there were a lot of secret fans of Elena Senpai. She added with a playful tone, warning Elena that it would be a disaster if her face got injured. She approached Elena and asked what she was reading. Upon seeing the content of the newspaper, she was startled and recognized the figure, realizing it was the executioner. Her eyes sparkled, seemingly even more amazed by Elena as she asked if she was a fan of the executioner. Elena looked at Lyra, confused, not understanding her question. Lyra clarified, asking if Elena was a Jade or the executioner fan. Elena responded, shocked by the question, not understanding why she was asked to choose such terrifying options. Lyra explained that the executioner was just as popular among girls as Jade. Without saying a word or even revealing his identity, he appeared from nowhere to save people in a pinch and then disappeared again. He's so cool, it's unbelievable. She leaned in and whispered to Elena, revealing that her favorite was the executioner. Still in disbelief, Elena asked how Lyra would like him even though his face was hidden. Lyra replied that it was obviously a handsome face under the hood, and as a hero who saved Ifer, she wanted him to protect her with that giant hammer. Elena reflected, thinking to herself that the executioner had become a mysterious and handsome adventurer, the champion of justice in the eyes of the public. She admitted she didn't understand, but she was glad she made people happy. Meanwhile, Elena asked about the sudden commotion, curious about what was happening. Lyra also wondered aloud. Trying to make sense of the situation, she exclaimed in surprise, her voice filled with confusion. In Elena's mind, she questioned why he was there of all places, unable to hide her shock. As a front-line fighter, he was once known as the strongest swordsman. Now, he is the highest authority in the Adventurer Guild, the Guild Master Glen Gallia. Elena was shocked, questioning why Glen Gallia, the Guild Master, had come to the reception area. In Ifer, a town that thrives on adventurers, the Guild Master of the Adventurers Guild, who is at its core, is essentially the highest authority. In the minds of the adventurers inside the guild, they thought he wasn't the kind of person who would casually show up at a reception desk in the middle of town. Meanwhile, as the guildmaster walked closer to the receptionist, Elena, a loud bang from the door caught everyone's attention. A man with short hair called out to the guildmaster, approached him and asked what he was doing there. The guildmaster addressed the man, telling him not to be so uptight and referring to him as the counter manager. The manager expressed concern, mentioning that if they had known in advance that the guildmaster was coming, they could have prepared. The guildmaster reassured him, telling him not to worry. He then mentioned that he had heard the executioner had appeared nearby and had just come to kill some time. Elena trembled at what she had just heard from the guildmaster. The manager mentioned the recent clay golem incident. The guildmaster responded, acknowledging that the executioner seemed quite active and adding that he was also curious about their existence. The guildmaster looked around the guild, seemingly searching for something, and began walking toward the reception desk where Elena was. Elena's face showed apparent anxiety as the guildmaster approached her, wondering why he was coming her way. Glen greeted Elena with a playful tone, asking how the cute receptionist was doing. Elena responded that she was doing fine, although fidgeting betrayed her nervousness. Glen smiled, pleased with her answer, and casually asked if she knew about his skill. Elena replied that she did, her voice steady despite the tension she felt. She silently described Glen Gallia's skill, Observer of Time, a super skill capable of stopping time, rewinding it, and revealing past events. As she finished her thoughts, a bad feeling settled in. It reminded her of when that silver guy had shown up at the reception desk, claiming he had seen the executioner's face. Glenn nodded, acknowledging her response. Elena responded, her unease lingering, and she thanked Glenn for what he said. Glenn gazed at his hand, contemplating his skill. He thought to himself that with it, he could stop time in the large square if an unknown executioner appeared and rewind it to a week ago, allowing him to see the face hidden behind the hood. Elena was apprehensive about Glenn's words. The manager asked if the guildmaster had come to uncover the identity of the executioner. Glenn responded, saying it was half right and had already seen it. Due to Glenn's words, Elena became highly nervous and worried. The two of them exchanged looks as if they were the only people in the room, and Elena was left wondering what Glenn had meant. The manager asked Glenn if he had found out the identity of the executioner. Elena, with a sense of anxiety, questioned herself, wondering if that was the end. Glenn responded, expressing that he had not found out the identity. He explained that the observer of time could only peek at past events and couldn't interfere with them, adding that the executioner had put on a mask under his hood and that guy was well prepared and anticipated his skills. The manager looked surprised, as the guildmaster couldn't figure out the identity of the executioner. The people around seemed in disbelief at what they had just heard. Meanwhile, Elena thought to herself, feeling conflicted and unsure about her conclusions. Her heart raced as she tried to control herself. She could feel her palms growing clammy, and her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and fear. She hadn't expected to be caught like that, especially by someone like Glenn, who had such sharp senses. The thought of her secret being uncovered sent a shiver down her spine. Glenn, with a serious expression, spoke that they needed a vanguard urgently for the silver sword, and he loved to welcome the executioner, or rather, the great hammer wielder, but that man seemed unwilling to join them. He approached Elena, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. He told her it was time to leave, mentioning that she had been a nuisance. Slowly, he leaned in closer, his face near hers, and whispered that it was difficult to talk to her there. He had prepared a carriage at the back and wanted her to come to the guild headquarters. Elena stood frozen, stunned, and unable to respond while Glenn left. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, Elena sat silently with the members of Silver Sword Party Jade, the man wearing all black, and Lullery Ashford as they left the guild. In the stillness, Elena's thoughts raced. The worst possible person had found her out. She had always known that moment would come, but now that it had, she couldn't escape the tremble that shook her body. He wasn't someone she could intimidate with force, and threatening the guild master would mean the end of her life and social standing. She asked herself what she would do. Jade spoke up, attempting to lift her mood. Elena snapped at Jade, telling him not to talk to her, calling him a snitch. Jade quickly defended himself, insisting he wasn't who told him to Glenn. He pleaded with her, but Elena cut him off, telling him to shut up and not caring for his words. Jade heard Elena's harsh words, a wave of frustration and pain passing through him. He remained silent as she sat quietly at the side. He says that Elena had called him many things, bastard, die, disappear, but being told she was hated was the only thing that genuinely stung. Lullery pointed out that Jade had probably been disliked from the start while the man wearing black covered her mouth, and warned her not to go for the kill, saying guys in love were delicate. Lullery, surprised, questioned if Jade could really be in love, considering he never gave a second look to any beautiful woman. She sighed, thinking it was hopeless, and the man wearing black covered her mouth again. He said that the girl didn't give Jade a second look, which surprised him. The final member of the Silver Sword Party was introduced, a man dressed in black, Ro. He approached Elena, eyeing her closely. He seemed puzzled, remarking that she looked more like a regular receptionist than the feared executioner. Jade responded, hinting that Ro would soon understand. Lullery commented that even if Elena was the executioner, she probably wanted to be a receptionist deep down. Ro disagreed, stating no real man would make a girl do something she didn't want to do. He also pointed out that a party forced together like theirs wouldn't last long. Lullery also expressed that forcing adventurers to do things they didn't want to do, even if one was strong, was just cruel. Ro nodded in agreement. Lullery turned to Jade, reminding him they were saved during the Hellflame Dragon incident, and even Iffer had been saved by the executioner. Jade pointed out that it would be terrible to repay that kindness with betrayal, as that was the one thing the guild master hated most, a secret. Lullery urged Jade, feeling something was being concealed, to tell them what was happening. Before Jade could answer Lullery's question, they arrived at the massive Adventurers Guild headquarters. While they were walking, Ro remarked, noting the size of the building. Jade explained that the building used to be an S-rank dungeon, but the guildmaster had conquered it entirely, turning it into the headquarters for the Adventurers Guild. He motioned for them to follow, slowly opening the door. They were shocked to find a vast, empty lot. Elena, staring at the space, wondered if it was an arena. Guildmaster Glenn approached her and said it was the most extensive training ground the guild owned. Elena focused on Glenn, anticipating what he wanted to discuss. Glenn studied Elena closely, remarking how much she resembled a regular receptionist. He admitted his surprise when he first saw the executioner alongside the time observer. But Elena's patience waning made it clear she would leave if that were all Glenn wanted to discuss, and she mentioned that she needed to prepare to return to her family's house. Glenn quickly stopped her, clarifying that she wasn't returning home but would join the Silver Sword instead. Elena firmly stated that if he wanted to fire her, he could, but she wouldn't join the Silver Sword. Calm and composed, Glenn reassured her, pointing out that she was misunderstanding something. He clarified that he hadn't called Elena to force her to join the Silver Sword or to fire her from her receptionist job. Elena was confused and responded with a questioning tone. Glenn explained further, mentioning his experience as a former adventurer and emphasizing that forcing someone to join against their will wouldn't result in a good party member. Elena, still uncertain, asked why he had called her there. With a smirk, Glenn issued his challenge, a fight with the executioner. Elena was shocked and left speechless by Glenn's unexpected challenge. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy this manga. Have a good day.